Let's sew together wide leg trouser of Atelier Aida collection. Cut the pattern pieces from fabric. Make sure the grain line of the trouser goes parallel with fabric's self-edge. And don't forget to mark the notches on the side seam of the back, front, and the pleat notches on the front panel. Cut a thin interfacing for the waistband. Exclude the seam allowance, it's 1 cm around the pattern. Reinforce only one piece of front and back waistband. Now start with zigzagging the side seam, inseam and crotch on the front and back panels, and also the hemline. If you have an overlock machine, it's better to use the overlock machine to finish the raw edges of the side seam, inseam, crotch and hem. After finishing the raw edges with zigzag or overlock, don't forget to press them. Now it's time to attach the pocket bag to the side seam. Place the right side of the fabric facing each other and pin the opening notches of the pockets. Make sure the edge of the fabrics are aligned. Repeat the same on the other pieces, 2 front panel and 2 back panels. Set up your machine for the straight stitches. Start sewing at 0.5 cm from the opening of the pocket to the other notch, sewing between the notches, and make sure to backstitch at the beginning at the end. Repeat the same on the other pieces. Now press the seam open and trim the seam allowance of the pocket bag side. Then press the seam allowance of the trouser over the pocket bag. Repeat the same on the other pieces. Stay stitch the pocket opening. Make sure the seam allowance lies under the pocket bag and sew at 2 mm distance from the seam on the pocket side. Backstitch at the beginning and at the end. Only between the notches must be sewn. Now it's time to attach the side seam together. Place the back panel on top of the front panel. Right side of the fabric must facing each other, and start pinning from the waist, aligning the notches together, the pockets opening notches, and pin. Then align the pocket bags and pin around. When you reach the side seam of the trouser, make sure the pocket opening, the end of the pocket opening align, and pin carefully pocket opening notches together. Then pin along the side seam and make sure the edge of the front and back panel are aligned. Align the notches on the knee, on the front and back panel, and the hemline. Then you can easily pin the rest of the side seam. Start by sewing at 1 cm seam allowance from the waistline. Don't forget to backstitch. Sew all the way to the notch of the pocket opening. Make sure your needles stay in the fabric. Lift the presser foot up, pivot your fabric 90 degrees and sew over the side seam. Make sure seam allowance lies under the pocket bag. Continue sewing along the pocket bag. Sew all the way to the notch of the pocket opening. When you reach this point, make sure your needle stay in the fabric, lift the presser foot up, sew over the pocket opening and cross to the side seam. Make sure the seam allowance lies towards the pocket bag. Sew along the side seam at 1 cm seam allowance till you reach the hem. Repeat the same for the other leg. Now it's time to finish the raw edge of the pocket bag. You can use either zigzag of the sewing machine or use your overlock machine for a nice and clean finishing. Gently press the side seam all the way from the waist to the hemline. Connect the inseam of the front and back panel together. Start by matching the notches on the knee, hem, and the crotch. Pin along the inseam and make sure edge of the front and back panel are aligned. Sew along the seam at 1 cm seam allowance. Don't forget to backstitch at the beginning and at the end. Gently iron and press the seam open. On the front panel, mark the pleats, 10 cm long, and fold the pleat close. The notch closer to the center front goes over the notch close to side seam. Pin the pleat and press. Secure your pleat by stitching at 0.5 cm on the waistline. You can also sew along the pleat fold at 0.2 mm, approximately 5 to 10 cm. This step is optional. Now flip one of the leg inside out and insert the leg facing right side up into the leg that you just flip it inside out. Align the seam together. Start by aligning the crotch seam and the waistline on both back and front. Pin along the crotch seam and make sure aligning the edge of the fabric together. Right side of the fabric should facing each other. Pinning the crotch seam together, you're creating a U shape. Start by sewing at the waistline, either front or back panel. Sew along the seam at 1 cm seam allowance and don't forget to backstitch at the beginning and at the end. Iron and press the crotch seam open. Measure the waistband of the back panel and cut elastic 80 to 70% smaller than the waistband length. Attach the side seam of the waistband of the front and back panel together. The reinforced panel together and not reinforced panel together. Sew it at 1 cm and secure your stitches with backstitch at the beginning and the end. Now attach your elastic to the seam allowance of the back panel, the one that is reinforced. The back panel is longer than the front, so the elastic should be attached to the longer side. Attach the elastic into the seam allowance and stitch a few times over to secure your elastic. After this, wear your waistband and try the fit. If the elastic should be smaller, now is the time to adjust it. Flip the waistband that is not fused to the good side. Insert it into the other waistband and make sure the good side of the fabric are facing each other. Start by pinning the side seams on both sides, and then start pinning the top side of the waistband together. The top side of the waistband is the one that is smaller. Pin around the waistband and make sure to align the edge of the fabric together. Start by sewing at 1 cm seam allowance. Since you are sewing around the waistband, only backstitch at the end when you reach the start point. Now iron and press the seam open, all the way around. Then fold the waistband double and roll the non-fused part 2 mm inside. Now again, lay down the waistband flat and fold 1 cm raw edge of the reinforced part inward. Iron and press while you are folding to creating a nice crisp line. Set up your machine for the zigzag. Since the elastic is smaller than the back waistband, you have to distribute this space equally. Divide the elastic in 3 points by folding it double and pin in the center. And find center of the half of the elastic on the both sides and mark it with a pin. Repeat the same on the waistband of the back panel and mark the point with the pin. Then attach these points on the elastic and the waistband together. Then sandwich the elastic between the waistband. Start sewing from the side seam with the zigzag stitches. While you are stitching, you have to pull the elastic, pull and sew from one point to another point. Take the pins out and continue further. Make sure the elastic is sandwiched between the double layer of the waistband. After stitching one line, start with the second line with half a centimeter distance from the first line. Now your waistband is ready to attach to the trouser. Start pinning the good side of the non-fused waistband part to the inside of the waistline of your trouser. Aligning the edges of the fabric together. And make sure the side seams are aligned. Change your sewing machine setup to the straight stitch. Start by sewing from the side seam all the way around the waistline. Sew at 1 cm seam allowance and backstitch at the end when you reach the start point. Now press and iron the seam flat, but pressing the seam allowance towards the waistband. Fold the waistband over the stitched line. Keep the 1 cm folded edge inside and cover the stitches by 1 mm and pin it on place. While you are pinning, you must make sure to hide the previous stitches. Start by sewing at 2 mm from the folded edge. Sew around the waistband. Keep the fabric flat and try to make no pleats while you are stitching. You can pull the fabric from behind while you are stitching on the back panel. Backstitch at the end and cut the threads short. Now try the trouser and check the length. If everything is good, you can fold it 2 cm inside and sew along the overlock line.